Sure. Renee from the Courier Mail.
Hello, Prime Minister. There are no families or women on Manus Island, only single men. Some of them have some serious security issues, as we're finding out, have found out in recent days. Australian Department officials have not denied that New Zealand officials have said New Zealand does not want to take any single men from Manus Island. What is your position on taking single men from Manus Island? And Prime Minister, can I get an update from you as well on the security issues in relation to some of those asylum seekers on Manus Island?
I welcome the question from the Courier Mail and the opportunity to correct the record. We've been utterly consistent. UNHCR themselves, of course, in the way that they work through with refugees, does place some priority on women and children. And of course that was something that we acknowledged and shared. It was never, however, the case that our offer across Manus and Nauru was solely around women and children. But of course we acknowledged the special need that existed there in the same way that the UNHCR does. That's the first point. The second point is that, of course, New Zealand will apply its own rigour around that process as well. We are simply not benign recipients of individual refugees. We have a role to play in ensuring that our national security is protected at the same time.
Well, it's true. Every country has to decide the circumstances in which people come to their country. And my only regret is that in the Australian Parliament in the last week that our ability to do that was compromised by the bill that passed the Parliament. On Manus Island, it is true that the only people there are single males. And we're aware that there are quite a number there who, if you would apply the normal character test that applies to all other persons who would seek to come to Australia, whether they're a student, a visitor or anything else, you wouldn't allow them in. And that is why we are concerned about what passed the Parliament last week, because it compromises our ability to prevent the transfer of people who would otherwise not pass that test. But whether it's certainly with the United States, where we have an arrangement where more than 450 people have already been transferred to the United States, and as you know, the last 4 children who are on Nauru already have their bags packed, ready to go to the United States. That remaining cohort of people, whether it's on Nauru or Manus, is around about the 1,000 mark. The majority of those are on Manus Island. The process of engaging with the United States will continue, and many are still engaged in that process, but ultimately it's up to the United States who they decide to take and who they don't. They are no more a passive participant in that process than anyone else would be. When it comes to the New Zealand arrangement, it's something we touch on every time we're here. The Australian government has no plans to take up that arrangement whatsoever, and that is particularly now more pertinent on the basis of what happened in the Parliament last week. That, I think, now makes that even more difficult than it was before. And we weren't taking it up before, but that would make it even... We appreciate the offer. I should stress it's been made by successive governments in New Zealand. We appreciate the friendliness of the offer and its genuineness. But in terms of Australia's security interests and how we manage our borders, we don't believe it's consistent with that, particularly now after what happened in the Parliament last week.